Hi, and welcome back to Music and Gear. In this episode, we're going to start the modifications on our Firefly FFDC. I have some blue tape here. We're going to start taping off the neck and getting it ready to start doing a fret level and recrowning all these frets. The first thing we need to do is take the strings off the guitar. So I'm going to do that right now, and I'm going to go into squirrel mode. Okay, now I'm going to go and take our truss rod cover off. I'm going to go grab my gauge and we're going to straighten the neck. After we get the neck straight, we'll start taping it off. Okay, I now have the tool mounted on our truss rod so we can make adjustments. I have the strings off the guitar and I have my gauge. We're going to set it at 24.75. Put the gauge on the guitar neck, and we want to make sure that we get this neck perfectly straight. Now that we've taken the strings off, we can see that it has a little bit of a back bow in it because there's no string pressure on the guitar. So we need to turn the neck, turn the key until we get the neck straight. And right there looks good. Now that we have the neck perfectly straight, there's a couple things that we need to do that I find makes it easier getting the tape off the neck once we start putting our tape down. We're going to be putting multiple passes of tape like this across the neck. Instead of sitting there and peeling off each individual piece, if we take a larger piece of the tape and we're going to run that across the neck right to the edge of the frets. And we're going to put a little piece right here. And then I'm going to go back and put another piece on it to give it some strength. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side. Okay, I'm going to start out with our very thin tape. We're going to start out down here at the bottom, and we want to get this tape as close to the edge of the fret as we can get. Now starting right here, the tape barely covered. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up probably 3 or 4 frets just on one end with this size tape. And then we'll hop up to the larger size tape for the other side of the fret. And here's our next size. That one's a little too big. So we actually can't go until this fret. Bigger tape. Alrighty, we have it all taped off. So all I need to do now is to kind of go back and just kind of clean up the edges of these frets since they're ball end frets. And even though we know we're replacing the pickups, I'm still going to tape over them so none of the metal from the frets stick. Even though these are stainless steel, so technically it shouldn't stick to the magnets, but better to be safe than sorry. And the old saying is, get in a practice of doing things, because you may get used to doing the stainless steel and forget to tape off the pickups, and you've done regular frets and then it sticks all over your pickups. And these posts have some jiggle from the factory. We'll have to see how our new hardware, how it threads in and how tight it is. Doesn't matter, even if it's a little loose, we can do the eraser trick and tighten up the hardware by putting a little erasers down in the hole. We want to make sure we cover the holes. So nothing gets down in them. Now I want to protect the horns from our fretwork. And our hardware. And right here on the corner, always double tape it. Tape is cheap. Protect your work. Okay, now that we have everything taped off, we need to take our Sharpie and we're going to put a Sharpie mark across every one of these frets across the top. That way when we take our sanding bar here, we want to work this back and forth and just barely remove the mark. We want to not look at this as we're not bulldozing over the frets. We want to lightly get the frets right. This neck is already pretty good. The spot is up here that was causing the issue. So right now I'm going to go through and I'm going to Sharpie all the frets. Alright, I have all the frets Sharpied, and all I did was just Sharpie the very top. Now we're going to start with our sanding. Okay, here's our sanding beam, and I have put a fresh piece of sandpaper on it, and I buy it in the roll, and this is 1200 grit, so I can cut it down the center and get two sections out of one piece. Now what we want to do here is we just want to lightly go over the frets. Like I said, we don't want to be a bulldozer. We're not trying to do land excavation work. We're just wanting to lightly hit the top of the frets. And you'll know because the black line will disappear across the top of the fret. Right across here, you'll see a silver stripe right in the center of the fret, and that's what we're looking for. And right now we're just going to start really slow. We're just going to move it back and forth. We just want to see our high fret. I am not applying any pressure. I'm just moving the tool back and forth. Now we want to look at what we have here. This fret, it really hasn't hit at all. This fret it's hit, it's still black here. This fret has completely been sanded through. This fret is completely sanded through. This fret's almost sanded through except the little dot right there. This fret is almost sanded through a little bit in the center. Just a little on the end here. This fret has not been touched. This fret has not been touched. This fret has not been touched. And then when we get down here, just a little here, 3/4, 7/8, 7/8, 7/8, whole fret, just the ends and just this corner. I'm not overly concerned between here and here. About our 14th fret, we're gonna put a little bit of a decrease. We're gonna come in on the 14th, add 2 pieces of tape to that fret, and we're gonna degrade the fret just a little bit. We put a little bit of fall off on the fret. So right now we need to continue to work definitely on this side here. We want to look, and keep in mind this is 1200 grit, so it's taking very little off. Now I can see in the light there's a huge flat spot right here in that fret. This one's pretty consistent, this one's pretty consistent. We're still not really hitting through here. We are starting to get into this fret, and again, really not too much going on here in the center. And what I'm doing now is I'm literally working the tool back and forth. This is going to take out, you're working with a radius, and this is flat. So it's only hitting the fret at its tangent point. There are thousands and thousands, millions of actual points across here. So there's no way to actually run this tool across without creating little tiny flat shelves. By taking the tool this way, you're decreasing that. You're taking some of those little micro shelves out. We just want to work it back and forth. And then I like going diagonally. And then the opposite direction. And keep in mind, I'm rolling this just a little bit. We're working with a very large radius. So a degree one way or the other is about all you need to keep this tangent square and 90 degrees to the fret. We're good through here. I'm just now seeing a line across this whole fret. And this fret right here seems to be the culprit. Let me get a rag and we're going to wipe this down. And you can go back over it with your Sharpie to get a new reference. So one more time. Okay, there's our new shop remark, and we're just going to again go back over it lightly. We want to find our spots. So it looks like our bad spot is right in here. It still needs a little bit more work. And it is very, very close. Okay, I think we need to take some off the sides here. So the only spot I'm seeing now is right here. All right. So all our fret marks now are gone. So I'm just kind of looking at them in the light to make sure that they're semi-consistent. And they're not horrible. The worst three seem to be right here. And what I mean by consistent, I'm looking at the tooling mark. In an ideal situation, the flat spot should be exactly the same all the way across the fret, which we have here, 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 this one, this one. This one's a little thinner in the center. This is consistent, 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 consistent. It falls off a little bit here, very thin on this end. Consistent, and then really thin on this end. Thin, consistent in the center, thin, exact same. Thin, wide, thin, thin, wide, thin, thin, wide, thin. A little better, then consistent, and then again. Here it does the exact opposite. It's going from thicker to thin to thick. So what we want to do now is we want to actually put a little back part in the neck, and I usually use 2 pieces of tape. And I'm going to go to this fret right here. I'm literally going to tape the fret with just 2 pieces. That's all it takes. And we're going to use that as our high spot and sand that direction to put a little fall off on the frets. And I'm looking at the tape right here, and I'm making sure that it's scoring all the way across consistently. And that has helped these 2 frets. I think it needs just a little bit more. Now we're going to remove that, and I'm going to come in and just blend that in. It doesn't take much. You're just blending at this point. So I'm rolling the sander like this. And I'm going to say we're good. Okay, we just finished leveling our frets, and I want to kind of go over something. There's a flat spot on the frets. In the light, I'm looking at how much flat spot is on each individual fret. I would like to tell you that that is consistent. It is not. On a refret, I would find this alarming because each fret, the crown on the fret is very consistent. In this case, since the frets were already leveled and crowned, we don't know if the fret was done like this, that they got a big hump in the fret and then they crowned it. So where the Sharpie is, that would be the flat spot. Okay? But if they crowned it like this on the next fret and we went the same depth, the flat spot would be larger. So we don't actually know if their crowning process from Firefly was extremely consistent. I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frets that are a little off possibly 7 that are a little thinner than these. And like I said, we don't really know how they crowned them. I did buy a special tool. So in the next video, what I plan on doing is I want to take that tool and we're going to gauge from the flat spot to the neck on every one of these frets. We did straighten the neck, but you can still be 1/1000th off here, 1/1000th off there. So we want to get an idea how close we are on how straight the neck is and how good our level job is before we move to crowning them. So we're going to do that in the next video. We're also going to crown these frets and polish them. If you like content like this, taking budget-friendly guitars, modifying them, and taking them to the pro level, leave me a comment down below. If you have suggestions or something that you see that I've done and you have a better way of doing it, I'm all ears. I'm all about learning. That's what this channel's about. Learning, doing, practicing, and having fun. If you would, please smash the like button, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing. When I see the subscriber count go up, it makes me feel good. It lets me know that I'm doing the kind of content that you guys want to see. Anyway, thank you for clicking on the video.